Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, September 15th. This is your daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Orr. The vote of the Big Ten presidents and chancellors to restart the fall 2020 conference football season did not happen yesterday. But today, friends, today is another day. And last night, we may have learned a little bit more about where things could be headed thanks to Wisconsin's Chancellor, Rebecca Blank, who did something crazy and gave an on-the-record interview to a media member. I mean, I didn't know that was legal. Buckeye Scoop beat reporter Tony Gerdeman is my guest this morning. Tony, there were a few interesting things in that article, but the line that everyone was sort of focused on was this, quote, "The Council of Presidents met Sunday night. We had a very good discussion. We're continuing to look at those proposals. I'm not going to say anything more about it at this point. I will say we're all going to move together in the Big Ten. We're all going to play or not if we possibly can. This isn't going to be a school-by-school thing." So, Tony, is that good news or bad news for a season starting in a month?
Well, the thing that sticks out to me most there is that if we possibly can, meaning maybe it still is a school-by-school thing. Yes, they all want all of the schools to play, and that's what they're going with. But I do wonder, they're not going to, if there are 9 schools that are ready to play, they're not going to not play because 1 or 2 aren't, and 3 others vote not to. Right? That's what I'm going with. So. I will be interested to see if the white smoke finally gets shown and there is a vote and it is in the affirmative for playing. Are there no votes, and would those no votes sit out? Because I find it really hard to believe that if there is a Big Ten football season, there will be teams not playing, because we've already sat here and watched other conferences play and been like, well, why can't the Big Ten play if everybody else can play? And now imagine, well, why can't all of the teams in the Big Ten play if most of the Big Ten teams are playing? So, and there's still the money aspect. I know that the presentations with the television partners has been given. I do wonder if a school sits out, where do they fall on the TV revenue side of things, considering they would not be part of that? And if they, say they weren't to be granted any television revenue, I'm guessing that would be a great incentive for them to reconsider playing or not.
Yeah, this is such a weird situation because to me, it's like, I can't imagine, given some of the quotes that have been given recently you go back and read the interview with the Rutgers president last, Thursday, that it was basically, it sure sounded like he had no intention of playing or voting to play. So I find it very difficult to believe it's going to truly be 14-0 them voting to play. So I think that's hard to believe. But also I have a very hard time imagining schools voting to sit out and, deciding that Minnesota and Rutgers and Michigan State they're just not going to play and everyone else is going to play. I can't imagine school presidents being willing to take the heat on that, because, if Wisconsin can play, why can't Minnesota play? That's not going to be something that's going to go over real well in Minneapolis, I would think. And then I also can't imagine the Big Ten coming this far and then saying, nope, none of us are going to play. So one of those 3 things sure seems like it needs to happen. So I'm not sure which one of it is, unless it's the scenario that you laid out where they don't all vote to play, but then they all play.
And I at this point, it feels like maybe that's, well, I don't want to guess what the Big Ten is going to do, but it feels like maybe that would be the most likely if the Big Ten does vote to play. Because again, if regardless of what one president thinks about it, and they can go ahead and vote to not play, just to put their heart out there and let people know what they wanted to do. But, at the end of the day, this is a conference-wide decision and the conference voted to play. So, what we're going to play, I would have preferred to wait, something of that nature, where you still put your feelings out there, but then leave it up to the conference to determine that it is safe. And I guess maybe that would be the option, because, Tom, you cannot have a Big Ten football season without Rutgers.
Can you imagine? That would be like having ice cream without gravy. Like, come on, you can't do that. That's un-American to have a Big Ten football season without Rutgers. There was something else in that interview with Rebecca Blank, the Wisconsin chancellor, that got a lot less attention, which I think could be an indication on where this could be headed. Her quote was, "We did say quite clearly when we said we were not going to play starting around Labor Day that we were hoping to postpone the season, not cancel it. there are a variety of proposals that might allow us to postpone it. Now, it was framed as a postponement initially, but that sort of ignores the fact that Kevin Warren's open letter about a week later said the exact quote: "The vote by the Big Ten Council of Presidents and Chancellors was overwhelmingly in support of postponing fall sports, and will not be revisited." Well, they sure seem like they're revisiting it now. And then Warren later told Sports Illustrated, quote, "Now I'm doing everything I can to focus on the future so our student athletes can have a rewarding Big Ten experience in the winter and spring." So it sure seems like, the postponement thing was definitely not postponed till later in the fall. So the fact that they're revisiting it now and talking about potentially doing it in the fall, and Rebecca Blank is reminding everyone, hey, we never said this was final. That sure reads to me like they're setting themselves up to kind of backpedal on the, will not be revisited piece and play. I mean, am I reading too much into that?
Yeah, you go back to everything. Remember when Gene Smith had to repeat like 3 days in a row after the Big Ten postponed the fall season that no, there will be no fall football. There is no options for fall football. It was always about we are moving forward with winter and spring, and that's what everybody was saying. So I don't buy this. Yeah, we've always had other plans. It wasn't until I don't know what 2 weeks ago that November, like the Thanksgiving thing, started to become an option. And then it was like, well, if it's Thanksgiving, why can't you do October, mid-October? Like this wasn't from everything we heard up until I guess, parents and players and coaches started to protest. There was never going to be a fall. It was always going to be January, New Year's start. That was all that was ever talked about from the moment the Big Ten closed its doors on a fall season. And now suddenly, oh no, yeah, we've been thinking about October. It's always been one of our plans. October, November, January. We've been thinking about this long and hard. And we've been thinking about this for so long that we still need more time to think about it because, this is a big decision. And it's not like we just started thinking about this and talking about it in depth over the past 4 days.
You raised an interesting point there that the conversation around January, maybe moving up to November, maybe moving up to October, changed right around the time of those parent protests and Ryan Day coming out. That's a strange thing for you to suggest that, because I have been reliably informed by some of the experts on Twitter.com that Ryan Day was not helping the process and may, in fact, have been hurting it. Just going to let that hang there for a minute. Just hang there. Okay, we're moving on. All right.
Good place for an ad.
Yes, good place for an ad. Hey, that was an ad. All right. Monday, there was one big piece of news, but it wasn't the one Ohio State fans were hoping for. Cornerback Shaun Wade opted out and declared for the NFL draft. A lot of people were kind of confused by the timing there, especially with as involved as his dad, Randy Wade, had been in the, let them play movement. But Tony, what was Shaun's reasoning with opting out on Monday?
Well, I think there is the whole aspect of tired of waiting, not having a direction. I think what people don't understand with players at Ohio State and players at high levels, they need like the routine. They need a direction. They need a goal. And just waiting around doesn't point towards anything, doesn't make them better. And Shaun Wade hasn't been around the program for weeks now. He's been home waiting it out, trying to decide what to do. And as every day we're waiting, like, is this the day for a vote? Imagine, this is how we feel. We're always waiting and fans are always waiting. Imagine how a player feels where their future is on the line and you're constantly, is this the day? And you're being told maybe, and then it's not. And there's some frustration there. I also think, Tom, that the longer you are away from something and you start to think about your new life, and especially for a future draft pick, when you start to think about your life as, tomorrow I could have a bank account that I never dreamed of, or that, that can set me up for life. And no, it wouldn't be an NFL contract, but a player can, opt out now and go get their endorsements and have, say $400,000 in the bank by the weekend. That's when you start thinking about that, and you're not around the team, I think it becomes easier to leave, and you almost have to opt back in. And so I think maybe there's some of that, and just the also the uncertainty. And players want certainty, and kind of the only way to get certainty here is to say, I'm leaving. I'm going to go get ready for the draft. And if something changes, then you deal with that. But this was a way for somebody to gain some certainty in an uncertain world right now. And I think that's also what it was about.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the potential of opting back in, and as I talked about with Nevada Buck on Monday's show, Wyatt Davis has definitely not closed the book on possibly opting back in. Is that a possibility for Wade as well?
Yeah, I think it is, and he has mentioned as much in interviews so far this week. Um, Again, I'll just go back to what I just said. It's hard. I think it's hard for some players to opt back in after they've already envisioned themselves out of it. But this is also a guy who came back to win a national championship, who already said no to the NFL once and wanted to improve his stock, and maybe now like he's already being talked about as maybe the top corner in the draft, so maybe the stock issue isn't there as much, but there is still the draw of playing with your brothers. And I mean, the way his career ended, if his career did end in that game against Clemson, this would be an opportunity to, I don't know, some retribution if he were to opt back in. Um, I don't know that I would be surprised either way. I guess maybe what I'd be surprised most is if the Big Ten were to announce something today that then allowed Shaun to decide, yeah, okay, well, this is a quick turnaround. Thank you, Big Ten. I'm back in.
Yeah, that's if you're banking on the Big Ten moving swiftly and decisively in a direction that you want them to. Well, this may not be the year for you, but who knows? The year's not over yet. If Wade is in fact gone and gone for good, that would seemingly kind of clear up things on the depth chart at corner. That's something we've talked about a bunch on Buckeye Scoop earlier in the year, and who might play where, and the three cornerback rotation, and all that kind of stuff. If Wade is really gone, it seems like that sort of clears it up, where it would be Cam Brown and Seven Banks on the outside, maybe Marcus Williamson in the slot, and then you've got guys like Tyreek Johnson, Legend Cavazos, Ryan Watts, who are in the mix as well. How do you see that shaking out if Wade really has played his last snap as a Buckeye?
Yeah, I'm with you. It has answered the question we were always asking: is will it be Cam Brown or Seven Banks opposite Shaun Wade? And it turns out it'll be Cam Brown opposite Seven Banks most likely. And Cam Brown was the number 4 corner last year and played quite a bit. Seven Banks was the number 5, I guess you'd say, behind Amir Reep was in there as well, but he was a slot corner. But those two played plenty, and they were both going to play a ton this year anyway. So I guess even though Shaun Wade may be gone, it doesn't really change a whole bunch because those two were going to be very instrumental to the season. And the question then remains with the slot. Marcus Williamson, we've heard some good things of late about him. Health has been an issue, but apparently things are going well. And with so much 7-on-7 stuff going on right now with the Buckeyes, you got to think the defensive backs are getting a whole bunch of work, and I assume that's going to help the freshmen as well. It's not the deepest group, and that's why you see 5 or 6 defensive backs coming in the 2021 class, and probably 5 or 6 more in the 2022. Who knows? But it's Ohio State. These are Ohio State cornerbacks, and we've even talked. After this year, it wouldn't be surprising if one of Seven Banks or Cameron Brown is an NFL prospect and turns pro early, because that's just what Ohio State corners do. Now, if both are starting and playing well, and they turn pro, that is a bunch of losses, bang, 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 over a few years that no program would be equipped to replace, but Ohio State probably the most equipped.
Yeah, if both Cameron Brown and Seven Banks are in the NFL draft in the spring of 2021, that's probably fantastic news for the 2020 Ohio State football team, and not real good news for 2021. But I think we as a society will get to 2021 when we get there. We're not there yet. Let's get through 2020 first. So, Tony, thank you for joining us. This at some point we will have news, one way or the other. We will have news on a Big Ten football season. Kind of definitionally, They have to make a decision at some point before October. Otherwise, they have made a decision. So one way or the other, we will have that decision at Buckeye Scoop. Promise, it is going to come at some point. Our team of insiders has been working crazy overtime to bring you everything we're hearing, everything we're learning, everything that kind of getting whispered to us by different sources. It has been quite a busy week on the Ask the Insiders forum, and this rest of this week is probably shaping up to be pretty nutso as well. So you can be a part of all the fun and all of the excitement and all of the madness at the Ask the Insiders forum at buckeyescoop.com. And we also have plenty of great free content as well. Also, make sure you check out all of our great podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. We have 11 shows on our network right now. If you cannot find a Buckeye Scoop podcast that is to your liking, you just don't like podcasts. That's, I think, my big takeaway there. So go ahead and search Buckeye Scoop on your podcast platform of choice. Find the one you like, subscribe to it right there. Leave us a 5-star rating or review. That will help other folks find all of our great shows. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.